I'll keep moving on and show you some stuff. So to start off with, I'd like to show two modules that you haven't seen yet. One you probably sort of hinted at before, and that is the bomb launcher. So I have that loaded up on the green Strike Scout. The bomb launcher is actually a small module that can hold 2 bombs. The speed is special. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But the damage is 6. So it does a significant amount of damage for the module that it's taking up. And it has to get within 1 hex of the target, or anything really, other than your own ship, to explode. So the speed is unique in that whenever you're about to release the bomb, so let's say you have this Strike Scout loaded with that bomb heading in towards this station as the target, let's say, and you're moving along towards that target pretty quickly, and you want to release something and get out of the way in case that space station is going to hit back at you. So let's pretend we moved our ship forward and decide to release the bomb at this moment. That's a great time to release that bomb because I'm in position to get away. And what you do at that point is that symbol represents the inertia. So you take a bomb token, any of the given numbers that are available on the tokens. So you take, let's say we'll take the number 4, and we'll place that on the board where I like it to release from. And again, that's adjacent to any hex. So let's say right there. Any hex that's adjacent to the hex of the ship. And then at the same time, I would take this equivalent 4 token and place it underneath the vector token of the Strike Scout. So what that does is that bomb that you've released will carry its inertia continually until it makes contact with something. It will never leave the board. It will continue to move on its own, even as you escape the other direction. So let's say you turned around here. Now that bomb is going to keep moving because your bomb token is in the same position as it was when you released it. So it keeps moving down this path. So in that case, it would keep moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and strike its target. If you had released it back here, the same thing would occur. It will continue along the path that you gave it through the ship, the way your ship was moving. So it's a great fire and forget weapon, but it does require your target to be in a predictable location. So large targets like space stations or other stations that may appear, or even slow-moving ships that aren't going to get out of the way for you, you can certainly attempt to lead them or target them if they're not moving very much. So bombs, they are very useful for slow-moving targets, or if you're good at releasing and flying away. They do a lot of damage. It's 6 damage, and they do damage when they are near your target. So they don't do damage when they overlap. They do damage when they're adjacent to any hex of the target. So pretty powerful weapon. The bomb launch only comes with 2, so that's kind of a limitation there to do that 6 damage per. But feel free to load it up if you'd like to take a Strike Scout out for a bombing run. The next module we have is the Morta, and this is the first module you'll see kind of named less directly than the other modules, and as we revise content and naming in the rules and in the story, you'll see these take on names that are more thematic to the game system. The Morta is special in that it's kind of used like a railgun. In fact, the iconography on the token is similar to a railgun, but it's a little smaller, so let's go ahead and compare the two. So the railgun is a railgun dart. It's a bit longer and it has a little longer trail on it, so it's indicating that it moves faster. The Morta has a projectile that is slower, smaller in length, but also has a little explosive icon on it. That means that when it gets in the vicinity of anything along its path, it's going to do damage. So what the Morta does is it fires this projectile. It fires it at a speed of 8. That means every round that projectile is going to move 8 hexes, and it's going to do 3 damage when it explodes. And it explodes within a 2 hex proximity. So if anything is within 2 hexes of this projectile, it's going to explode, and that object will take that damage. You have 4 ammo with this, so it's kind of in between taking an extra ammo hold with a railgun, and it costs the same as a particle cannon. So it's kind of in between the two in usefulness, but it can be pretty effective, especially if you can get a couple off going in a couple of rounds. So as an example, let's say this battle cruiser was going to fire that Morta round. It will be deployed in the front of the ship, and at the point of time in which the sector board activates, this will move up to 8 hexes. So it didn't quite make it to that ship on the next round, but let's pretend that it moved a little bit. Well, that's okay, because even if it moved past that line of fire, as that mortar round comes through, it's going to get within 2 hexes and explode and do the 3 damage. So it's slower than a railgun, faster than a missile. It can only move in a straight line, but does 3 damage, so pretty powerful. So that are 2 modules that you haven't seen yet, and of course we have a lot more to show in the future. The other thing I wanted to show you was how automatons work, because that's a pretty significant gameplay feature when it comes to the solo play and even cooperative play when you're playing against things that the group of players don't control. So each automaton, and automaton would represent any other ship on the board. It could be ships from other factions like you see here. It could be tokens that are provided as part of our token set, which would be the cardboard tokens on the board. In this case, we're going to use a strike scout from the wolf faction as the kind of demonstration ship for this automaton. And each automaton will be represented by a card, and that represents its stats. So it's kind of the cumulative stats of what you would have from your own ship, with all of its things attached, except it's a fixed configuration in the card. So looking at this frigate interceptor automaton, it has on the left-hand side shields, hull, and reactor. You're familiar with that through your existing ship configurations. And this would vary depending upon what type of automaton this was. The difference here is that it's a little more straightforward in damage. Hull would roll over into reactor immediately, and once the reactor is depleted, then the ship would explode. So that's how you would destroy a automaton. And what's unique about this card is how the kind of AI instructions work. There are 2 modes of operation: passive and aggressive. I'm just going to change the view here so you can see. If you don't mind, if you move your hand out of the way, Joe. So we have passive, which is the default kind of way the ship would operate if it wasn't under threat. And you know if a particular automaton is in what mode by the token that is next to your card. And each token would be labeled by number, so you can keep track of multiple automatons on the board. And this shield icon on this token represents that this automaton is currently in passive mode. And the reason for that being a passive and when it goes aggressive are dictated by the mission. So the mission may have this automaton patrolling certain waypoints, and upon being attacked, it turns aggressive, or it may turn aggressive if you enter a particular zone of the board or pick up a certain thing. So the mission will dictate how the passive aggressive works. But outside of that, if it is passive, like you see here with this shield, it will only do the things that are below this passive line. So here we have waypoint navigation, and each of these modes will always have some form of navigation because that's how the ship will find its way around the board. In this case, the passive mode is waypoint navigation, and that means it will seek out the waypoint order that's defined in the mission and travel to those locations automatically on every round. It has then repair shields. So repair shields is if it's damaged, it's going to spend energy to repair shields. And also plasma defense. If there's energy left over after all of this and there's a weapon coming at them, they will spend energy to try to deplete the ability of that weapon that's coming at them. But if they are aggressive, I mean, they've been agitated in some way, or the mission says they turn aggressive at a certain point, that's when they have what they call opportunity. And not all automatons will have an opportunity, but this one does. This one has a opportunity attack called plasma cannon. It's very similar to what you have. It requires energy to spend. And it says if the target would be in the ship's line of sight during its movement or the target's movement, this weapon does 3 damage. And it must spend 2 energy to do that. So what's going to happen is at the beginning of its activation, you'll spend energy down this list according to what mode it's in. And when it runs out, it's done with its actions. So you'll see when it's aggressive, the first thing it's going to try to do is attack its target. So a good question there would be, well, what is its target, right? So here we have a target token. And then maybe more than one, but this is the target token for this particular automaton. And that would go along with whatever target is targeting. So let's say this is the automaton and my green ship was the target. That target token would just follow that ship around so this one knows which target it is. So if that's the target, if this automaton happened to be in a path where it was cruising by and it had a shot, it would take it. It must take it. So as whoever's controlling the automaton, whoever happens to be managing that particular automaton on their board, would have to follow this instruction. And if it has that shot, you must take it. So in that case, you would spend the energy off the board, and the ship that was targeted would be hit for 3 damage. So then you would continue to go down the active steps here. Here we have pursue. So in this case, this is an interceptor that has a pursue navigation. And what pursue means is that it will chase after the target based upon its center of mass. So how that works is this ship will seek out the center of mass of this ship on every round and attempt to catch up to it within a certain range, and then slow down a little bit so it doesn't overshoot. I'll explain that in a moment. So that's pursue. If it was, let's say, intercepting as a interceptor, instead, what it would do would be go after the velocity helper or the ship's vector. So if this is where the ship will be on the next turn, instead of chasing after where you are now, it's going to chase after where you'll be. So there's actually 2 modes to this card, or 2 types of this card, and you can actually just flip it over to flip to the other side. And right now, it's the only difference you'll see is that instead of pursuit has intercept, and intercept means it chases after where your ship will be, not where your ship currently is. I'll flip that back over for now. So after it does all the aggressive steps, it would then continue on to the passive, except for navigation. So because a ship can only do 1 navigation each round, it actually skips over navigation, goes right to repair shields and plasma defense. So this is the model of the Automaton card, and there are 24 that come with the game that represent different abilities and different capabilities what automatons might do. And they usually are 4 to 6 actions on their card divided by aggressive and passive. So that is the automaton card. Now I'll explain how the movement actually works, because that is a significant part of how the ships actually navigate themselves. So here we have a starting point, let's say, for this Wolf Faction Strike Scout Automaton. It's currently not going any speed. And if I look at the card, when it says waypoint navigation, because it's currently in passive mode, because nothing's threatening it, it will rotate the vector token towards the waypoint marker until line of sight passes the waypoint marker to a maximum of 2, and then thrust. It's one sentence that means two things. One is it's first going to rotate its token, and that's this your vector token on the velocity board, so that it's pointing towards the next waypoint, but past that waypoint. So if this is where the ship token was facing, it's going to turn 1 hex or 2 hexes until it passes the waypoint it's going to. So in this case, this ship is heading towards waypoint C. So it's going to turn and then apply thrust as it turns past waypoint C. So that's what that line means when it says turn so that the ship faces beyond the waypoint. And then it's going to apply thrust of 2, max of 2. So that's where that ship will be on its first turn. So then the same rule applies if you look at that rule on the next round, where it says rotate the vector towards the waypoint marker until the line of sight passes the waypoint marker to a maximum of 2. It's the same exact action, except because now the waypoint is on the other side of the line of sight, you're going to turn this way. So that's one rotation that way. And you're going to apply a thrust of 2. Now in passive mode, this ship will not attempt to apply thrust so that it goes up to 5. It will stay within the 4 ring of the velocity board. And then we're going to go ahead and move there. So now at this point, it's not going to apply any more thrust unless it has to. So right now, the next move would be here, but because of the way the automaton works, it's going to rotate so its line of sight is now facing this way, up to 2 maximum. So now it's actually directly facing this waypoint, and we're going to apply thrust of 2, as that rule says. And then we land right on it. So that's how ships self-navigate, and I'll go ahead and show you how this works for a ship that actually has a little bit more velocity. So the next turn, it shows the ship that will be here, but it's trying to get over to B. So because it's pointing this way, it's going to turn until its line of sight is on the opposite side of the waypoint, up to 2 rotations, and that's only 1, so we're good. So I'll turn and then apply 2 thrust. So the next position will be there. And then again, the next round, it will be here. And now it's lining directly up with the waypoint, so we don't do anything. It just applies 2 thrust. So it will be there in the next round. And now in the next round, it goes way past it, so what it has to do is turn again. And again, it's facing this way, so it's going to turn up to 2 hexes. In this case, I'll need to turn 1. So I'll go ahead and turn that. And then apply 2 thrust. And the ship will be there. And that is repeated until it hits its next waypoint. And the mission will tell you how close the ship needs to be to the waypoint before it goes to the next one. And that's how a ship would automatically move and kind of patrol whatever waypoints the mission says. So that's great for static things like waypoints and stations that it's going to approach. But let's say it was a moving target. Let's say it's trying to chase down this battle cruiser. So I'll set this up as in the same fashion. And let's say this battle cruiser is heading, I don't know, pick a direction. That way. And I think we picked a card that is Pursue, or do we pick? Yes, Pursue. So we'll keep that. We'll keep the ship chasing it, and maybe we'll change it to Intercept later on. So now here's your strike scout. Here's, which is an automaton that the rules are controlling. Again, your other player's not controlling it. It's coming after you, and every time it has an opportunity, it's going to try to hit you with its weapons or whatever actions it has on its card. So to start off with, the target ship is here. This is a player controlling this green battle cruiser, and then the automaton will control this orange strike scout. So let's say the battle cruiser goes first, and I don't know, Joey, maybe you want to control where that velocity is going while I do the strike scout. So now the strike scout's going to move, and right now it's facing this way, right? So the rule says rotate the direction of the vector token so it crosses over the path of the center of mass of the target, and then that's the direction that it'll face. So it's going to face this way, and then you apply a thrust of 2. Oops. 1, 2. So now this ship will end up here and facing that way. Go ahead, Joe. Why don't you go ahead and take your action on that ship? And you can go ahead and apply a thrust if you'd like, or whatever.
I'm going to just let it drift this time.
You're letting it drift into the Astro. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get there. I'll get there.
All right. So now the next point of the ship is here. And now this is an aggressive mode, and it's far away, so it's going to be allowed to go all the way up to 5 velocity. So what that's going to do is first see if it needs to turn, which it does because it's not facing the target, it's facing this way. It's going to go past that center of gravity and face this way. So we just turn it 1 hex, and then apply 2 thrust, 1, 2. Now it's going here, and why don't you go ahead and take your action, Joe?
And I'll give myself some 2 thrust here.
That's a good idea because this is coming fast at you.
And then I will move.
Okay. So now it's going to go. Oops. And based upon where it's going to be, it is perfectly lined up with the center. So it's just going to apply as much thrust as it can and go there. So again, we're in pursue mode. So it's attempting to get within the ship's range and not in front of it. So it'll always be kind of chasing. And at this point, if it had the particle cannon, it would fire it because it's right in line along its path. And then Joe would be taking damage because he's running away. So then go ahead and move your ship.
I'm going to move it. And then I'm going to rotate it once here.
Good move. Oops, sorry, Joe. Didn't mean to
That's
take it away.
okay. I know where it was.
Okay. So then this is where it will be. It will then rotate its token past it once, and then apply 2 thrust. It's got a bead on you. So now it's facing this way. Did it have a shot on you on that one for a particle cannon? No, couldn't do it because you're out of the way. So now it's actually going to face that way. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay. I'll apply 2 more thrust and rotate again. And
That's good. You're moving at a pretty good clip. So let's see where this is going to end up here. It is not past you, but it does have a shot. So it's actually going to take its shot right at that point. So go ahead and move.
I'm going to thrust 3.
Let me get that big ship out of the way. All right, so now it's way past. That's where it'll be. So it's going to rotate. Oops. It's going to rotate. Tab. Ooh, it's not tabbing properly. Rotate 1 and apply 2 thrust. Takes it to there. No shot on you again, but it looks like it's going to get one pretty soon.
I'll do this, and I'm going to rotate one more time.
So you're kind of like driving in NASCAR, right? Only making, well, that's left-hand turns, right? This is right-hand turns for you.
I got a plan.
You got a plan.
Yes, and then I will rotate.
Cool. So in this case, your target is within, we call it that arc. So let's see where it's going to be. Apply 2 thrust because it can't turn. Oops. And be there. So the reason why that occurred is ships are not necessarily stupid. If it has a object that it would collide with, including any asteroid, it's going to take the nearest angle and apply thrust to get away from it. And that's what just happened there. So does it have a line of fire to you? Oh, it just misses you. So
But
go ahead and move
you'll
again.
get me. I think you're going to get me this time here, and I'm going to rotate one more time.
There you go.
Do I want to rotate one more time? Yeah, I'm going to make it hard for you. I'm going to surprise you here. Watch this. What's going to happen here? Whoops.
Interesting.
Go.
You're on the right spot.
Oh,
Mm.
I'm sorry. I may be one off. I
Are you going to
apologize.
fire at me finally? And face your
That's right. That's
pursuer?
right. I'm tired. So I guess we would open fire on each other at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So you would go first because you're the person to act. So that's where it would be next round. So it's going to rotate and apply 2 thrust. So it'd be there next round, and so on. So I think everyone gets the idea. This is the aggressive mode or more reckless version of flying. There's different rules based upon what the ship's capability is. So if it was flying in a passive way, or it was told by the mission to continue to fly passive even though it played its aggressive role, it would never exceed a maximum of 4 velocity. And there's even more conservative flying. And the more conservative the flying, the more accurate the ship will pursue its waypoint, its target, its objective. So that's how automatons work and how they would mix into missions that you play either solo, cooperative, or even competitively, where automaton ship might mix things up. So, any questions from the people watching on the 2 new modules that we talked about, how the automatons work, anything that you would like to see? Let's pretend you had one of those flat cannons, Joe. I don't think you could hit my strike scout with a bomb, though. Here's a flat cannon, which is actually called the Morta. I called it flak. So that would, yeah, just about hit me. 2 hexes away, and that would do 3 damage. Still there, Joe?
Yep, I'm just answering a quick question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, the chat is not flowing for me. Is it flowing for you?
Yes, it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, and that's a good point, Joe. The strike scout does have the ability to do that, but in this case, it only has the ability to rotate before, because that's the way the automaton works. And the some battle cruisers even though they are the size of battle cruisers, the automatons may have that ability as well. But otherwise, they'll be rotating before and after, and because of that, they'll only be able to go to a maximum certain velocity as part of their action.
Good point.
Yes, it would be. If it was well, there's different classes of these automatons, right? So if it was technically a battle cruiser, yes. But there's going to be different classes that have different mixed abilities. Like this one in particular can't do both. It can't rotate before and after. It's got to rotate before as part of its control. All right. So yeah, we're really excited to put these into some solo missions. We do plan to bring a solo / cooperative mission to Tabletop Simulator for you all to play. Should be a lot of fun doing that and experimenting with what the automatons can do. If there's an automaton that isn't based upon an existing miniature within the game, then there would be a token that represents it. And you would also use a token like that on your velocity board to represent its velocity. So there could be more things going on. Let's say you had a max play count with all 3 ships each. There would still be these tokens that you can control automatons with, besides the ones that you use to control your other ships. And while these abilities that you see here on this card kind of mirror the abilities that you see in your own ships now, it does not mean that that's all you will see. Some of these automatons will have abilities, things on them, things that they need to do as part of their aggressive or passive mode that you will never see on your own ship. That only they can do. Great. And just as a reminder for anyone first, seeing this for the first time, the Tabletop Simulator module is available on Steam. This is the kind of full loadout of ships, but that one has 2 ships that you can play 2 missions that are in that tabletop module. And again, we'll continue to add to that module as time goes by here. There are helper cards across the bottom of each station that kind of point out some of the more common things that you'll be doing. But we'll keep things updated regularly and try to post notes about that. But yeah, you can find it on Steam Workshop under Tabletop Simulator. Just search for Velocity Vanguard, or if you go there now into the miniature section, it's probably in the top 3 still, top 3 or 4 of the miniature section, which is awesome. But if not, you can find a link to our Kickstarter page, a link from our Kickstarter page to that Tabletop Simulator. And then once the Kickstarter is over, we'll put all the links up on our main website so you guys can keep up to date on what that Tabletop Simulator is doing, what's new, what's added, and as things move along.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
It was a great walkthrough. I appreciate it. Nicely done.
No problem. No problem. Chaos Farsi in parentheses says, secretly, the final boss of the co-op campaign is the station tile. That would be a bit anticlimactic. I don't know. You start off with it in the first mission, and there'll be something else in store for that 18th mission in the timeline, and it is not a station based upon a Rift architecture. Cool. Well, thank you all for joining this brief session. Sorry if it changed it up on you, but I thought it'd be better for you guys to see some new stuff that you haven't seen yet. Again, feel free to ask questions on the Kickstarter page, through Board Game Geek, through social. So many ways to contact us. Just feel free to do that anytime you like, and we'd be happy to answer those questions. But don't forget, we're on Kickstarter till next week, so go check it out and back us if you like the game. But for now, we'll see you later.